Drucker of Drucker Antiques. We are three people, myself, Bill Drucker, and Burr Drucker, my husband and my son, who operate Drucker Antiques, and we specialize in Georg Jensen silver, in Art Nouveau, in American and European arts and crafts, objects, as well as jewelry. And I am the author of the book, Georg Jensen, A Tradition of Splendid Silver, published in 1997 by Schiffer Publishers in Acclaimed, Pennsylvania. And it is a book about Georg Jensen, his life, his work, and how he impacted on 20th century design. This segment is going to discuss the Holloware that Georg Jensen produced from the beginning of his atelier at 36 Bredgade in Copenhagen in 1904 and up through today. I would like to say that when he opened his workshop in 1904, it was with silver artistic jewelry. And the reason he opened with jewelry, although he was a sculptor and trained as a sculptor at the Royal Academy of Art in Denmark, was because he didn't have very much money, and it took less money to make jewelry than it did to make Holloware, and less time and less money in silver to make flatware, to make jewelry, as it did to make the Holloware pieces. And when we talk about Holloware, we're referring to something that you can't wear, like the jewelry, which you can't wear. You cannot wear a bowl or a vase, and everything that is included under the title of Holloware are vases, letter openers, desk accessories, bowls, flatwares considered serving pieces or utensils that we eat with. The Holloware actually can even include pitchers and serving dishes, candle holders, dresser accessories, vases and bowls. The first piece of Holloware that Georg Jensen designed in 1905 is the Blossom teapot with an ivory handle. And this tea set in the Blossom motif is number 2, and it is decorated with a finial, with a flower-like bud, and 3 leaves that are closed together. The surface is a very brilliant silver with lots of hammer marks that are typical of the arts and crafts period, and the blossom on top of the lid is the most significant signature piece that Georg Jensen did. When he did make this first teapot in 1905, he took it across to the museum and sold it to the Museum of Decorative Art in Copenhagen, and it spurred him on and encouraged him to go forward with making Holloware. He also was able to explore the possibilities of silver as a sculptor because of his background. And possibly it's in Holloware that Georg Jensen was able to use his talent and his training as an artist to the best extent, or to the broadest expression of his talent. He was a master silversmith and apprenticed when he was 14, so that all these years of work in the silversmithing area gave him the knowledge to understand the properties of silver. And as an artist, he was able to use his background as a sculptor and his training at the Royal Academy of Art to integrate both, to integrate the craft of silversmithing with the art of the time. And it is still a very attractive set, and later on he was able to integrate this blossom into flatware, and there's a set of flatware that's called Blossom as well. This is a complete tea set. The Louvre bowl is a fruit bowl that's called the Louvre bowl because in 1914 the Louvre in Paris purchased this, and it was given this name and has been identified as that since then. It was designed by Georg Jensen in 1912, and of course he gained great recognition and through the purchase of the Louvre of this bowl. And this bowl rises from the base and it rests on very leaf-like forms and berries. And the outside rim of the bowl is flat and it has grooves around the perimeter. It is a very beautiful bowl, and it can be used for fruits or a centerpiece or flowers on any piece of furniture. The grapefruit bowl, it's really the grape motif, number 263, was designed by Georg Jensen in 1918. This bowl is produced in 4 different sizes. The dripping grape motif with the vines wrapped and flowing is most popular in Jensen's designs and most often referred to as his signature. The motif was used on numerous bowls, candlesticks, bottle trays, and it is very recognizable and still made today. A 3-piece tea set designed by Johann Rode. It's called by the production number 787. Every piece of Jensen Holloware, if you turn it over and look on the bottom, it has a production number. It also has a company mark, a logo. It also has a silver standard mark, and it also has a country of origin mark. So when I refer to the number, it's the number that is quite visible. You might need a magnifying glasses in some instances, but it is visible if you turn it over and look on the bottom. This teapot has an ebony handle and a covered sugar and a creamer. The simple, perfect shapes are accented by the handle. The ivory handle tea and coffee set on a tray is designed by Johann Rode, and it's number 45, and it was designed in 1915. This includes a hot water kettle and a stand, which is called 45B. This is a rare and very desirable hot water kettle. It's a tilt-top teapot which can be removed from the stand, or it can be used on the stand by just tilting it so that you don't have to take it out. It is no longer made today, this particular tilt-top. It's very costly, very laborious. The tray is massive and can be used for any other service as well. You could use it for wine goblets as well as the tea set. And the 4 grooves on the tray, which is the motif on the perimeter, are very similar to the way the Louvre bowl is decorated on the perimeter. The creamer is an elegant, graceful shape. It is an extraordinary complement to enjoying a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and it looks absolutely grand on a dining room table. A coffee and tea set with ebony handles. A 4-piece coffee set actually is very simple and bulbous in shape. It's designed by Georg Jensen in 1915. The production number is number 80. There is a kind of simplicity to the forms. They have no decoration on them. They're just bulbous, and each form is complemented by the handle, which protrudes on the side and is just an oblong black ebony. It's very comfortable to use, although unusual in the way the handle is put on the each of the utensils. There's a covered sugar with a little ebony finial and slight beads all around. It looks very much like the beaded pattern in flatware. This is an example of a tea strainer. It can be used independently, or it can be used on top of a cup if you set it on top of a cup. If you look inside the tea strainer, you'll see that there's reticulation and pierce work. Each of the silversmiths were entitled to do their own decoration on the inside of the tea strainer. So there was a little liberty in that area, and possibly a little more fun for the silversmith in doing it. But tea strainers were very desirable. When Jensen store opened in London, and the English, who loved Jensen very much, drank so much tea, it was certainly conducive to make more tea utensils and tea sets, and possibly that was part of the impetus for having so many tea sets, although I think it was a Danish custom to serve tea and coffee in a tea set. The tea strainer in the cactus pattern is a good example of how a flatware pattern is integrated into a serving utensil. And a tea strainer is an accessory to dining. It just complements what it is that you're serving. Not all tea strainers were made in patterns that complement flatware sets. This particular tea strainer is interesting because it has a beautiful stand. You can take the tea strainer off the stand, and it has legs on the bottom, round balls. It's quite beautiful, and it looks just lovely as an object in a curio cabinet, as well as a very functional piece. A three-piece coffee and tea set almost looks like a squash blossom or a big gourd. It's design number 179, designed by Georg Jensen in 1923. It might remind you of a pumpkin in the shape of the lines that help to define the form. And the handles are very beautiful. There's a little bit of ivory on the handles, and there are leafy buds that are inside the handles, almost the same bud that adorn ornamental pieces of flatware. It's a wonderful set to look at, and very useful. The drawing of the coffee pot by Johann Rode is a fine example of how a piece was put into production. Sometimes Georg Jensen would draw on a scrap of paper and put it in his pocket and bring it into the smithy, and the silversmiths working would pick it up and start to work on it. In the same manner, Johann Rode would draw an object that he wanted the smithy to implement for him and to put into silver. And he was so certain that Jensen would respect the high quality that he loved, and would be true to the drawing that he gave him, that he would indicate the gray marks on it as though it was oxidation on a piece of silver. And the drawing is quite beautiful, and we're very fortunate to have acquired some of the drawings so that they could be in the book as well. There is a small three-piece set, and I say a three-piece set because it almost looks like a sample set. It's very miniature. It might be a coffee pot for no more than 2 people, and a very miniature blossom open sugar and a little creamer. It's number 235. It was designed in 1917. The open sugar basket has beautiful blossom buds where the handle joins, and of course the open sugar with a handle on it could be used as a candy dish as well. The tea and coffee set, number 1017, on a tray with a creamer standing outside of the tray, was designed by Henning Kappel, that wonderful addition to the company, in the late 40s. This was designed in 1963, and the handles are guava wood. They're very sculptural. They're keeping with the silhouette shapes of modernism. Kappel was an artist who drew his designs and sat alongside the silversmith while he worked on the designs that Kappel had done. It's very sleek. There's a hinged cover on top of the teapot and on top of the coffee pot, and it's a lovely handle, easy to pick up and serve. The three-armed candelabra with foliage decoration as each arm reaches up to the bobetch is number 595. The center cluster almost looks like an acorn. It was designed by Georg Jensen and very impressive, and a very long bobetch for the candle. The candlesticks designed by Harold Nielsen are reminiscent of the flatware pattern. They have simple lines in a circle. They hold a very large, thick candle, and they're very low. They are in the pyramid pattern. The candlestick that you see, the single candlestick, was designed by Georg Jensen in 1918. The production is number 263, and the grape motif is the same motif that was used in jewelry, expanded in Holloware, in compotes and bowls, and wine casters. This pair of double-armed candlesticks are number 278. They were designed by Harold Nielsen. The arms sweep out in a graceful line on which the bobetch rests for the candle holder. The decoration in the center at this base is so beautiful. It is filled with berries that appear to burst from a blooming plant. It almost looks like there's a life to this little bit of greenery in the center, although it's in silver. And one stick might be enough, since it's a double-armed candelabra, but two make an even grander statement. The next pair of candlesticks were designed by Sigvard Bernadotte, and they're number 1050B. Again, Bernadotte started his career in 1930, and he introduced Swedish geometric forms in design. The name of functionalism was given to the style that Bernadotte expressed. It was linear, a simple surface decoration, and the line seemed to be the decoration more than anything else. They're very beautiful and can certainly be appropriate with modern furniture as well as classical. This is a very traditional bowl designed by Georg Jensen, the production number 4. It's a small bowl with a very hand-hammered finish and a wonderful design for its size. It's not very large. There are lines that emanate from the base through the pedestal into the bowl, and they terminate on the circumference of the bowl with tiny silver berries. It's very impressive for a small size, and there's a tremendous amount of detail work. The Blossom Open Sugar is the same sugar that was in the tea set. The illustration of 3 little pots with a handle in them are very interesting because they're a combination of porcelain and silver. They're mustard pots, or pots that you could put some condiment in that you wouldn't want to put in silver, because there are some kinds of foods that you put in silver and it discolors it. For example, when you put salt in a little silver cell, you might want to take it out after the meal and wash it and dry it carefully, because the oxidation of the silver can damage, the oxidation of the salt can damage the silver. But these 3 little pots are each a different colored porcelain, and the bottom of the porcelain is marked Royal Copenhagen, and you can see the 3 wavy marks if you're familiar with Royal Copenhagen porcelain, and you can date them. And each one is a different pattern. One pot is the cactus pattern with a silver finial and a silver spoon. The other is a Bernadotte pattern, and each of the ceramic bases, the Royal Copenhagen, are different colors, and it might be lovely to have a collection of mustard pots. It would look great in a curio cabinet. The sugar caster is one of the most interesting pieces that the Danes made, that Georg Jensen made. If you think about powdered sugar and the kind of Danish pastries that are so wonderful, not great for our figure, but they're wonderful to eat and they're nice to look at, a sugar shaker or a sugar caster was a common accessory. This is one of the most extraordinary pieces. It has such great detail on it. It's number 33. It was designed by Georg Jensen, and it's an accessory to the table that was used for powdered sugar. The candy dish also has the most beautiful footed base. It is very defined by the decoration on the bottom of the pedestal. Again, it's an example of a beautiful object that you can use for everyday use. The next bowl is sometimes referred to as a cherry bowl, or it could be a fruit jardiniere or a flower bowl. It's very impressive. It was designed in 1927 by Georg Jensen, and it has beautiful, big, bulbous cherries or grapes inside the handle. The next piece is a glass-bottomed, covered jelly jar. And there's a spoon in the blossom pattern that's lying alongside it. It's a great way to serve jelly, and a very beautiful piece. And you can see how the finial of the blossom was integrated. The three-part bowl that has a very geometric handle is probably one of the heaviest pieces of Holloware. It's very solid. It has a rope-decorated handle on it, and it's a three-section bowl that is number 323. It was designed in the 30s. It's a compartment bowl, which was commonly used as a complement to serving a meal. The box has a grand finial on it. It was designed by Georg Jensen. It's number 166A. The finial, again, is naturalistic in motif, and it swells up from the center of the lid. The glass decanter with a silver stopper integrates the grape motif into the stopper. The bottom of the decanter very often was made by baccarat, sometimes a Swedish glass. It was changed in a variety of times. It didn't necessarily always have to be baccarat or always have to be a Swedish glass, but it was always very fine glass that accompanied the stopper. And the next is a pyramid stopper. You can see the glass bottom on the pyramid stopper, which is the old way of making a stopper rather than putting cork on it. The wine goblet, designed by Georg Jensen, is very simple in design. It has a beautiful, beautiful stem that joins the bowl with the bottom. It is a wine goblet that is still being made today. And the big chunky wine goblet, which is number 296, really integrates the grape motif as we saw in the candlestick and in a compote. It's a very big, heavy, chunky goblet, and it was made in several sizes, at least 3 or 4 sizes. The beautiful wine goblet with this very ornate pedestal has lines that radiates from the bottom. This was designed by Johann Rode. The stem is wider at the base where it joins the bowl, and there are beautiful wavy ridges in the silver, almost like a piece of sculpture. It is quite beautiful. The next piece is a trivet designed by Georg Jensen, which is very rare. It's number 623 with open work, and again you can see the grape motif. It must have been wonderful when a store opened in Barcelona, and grapes was such a wonderful commodity there. I am sure that many grape motif products were sold there in larger numbers than any place else and more popular then. The picture that you see here with this ivory handle, it looks like a large-size creamer of the coffee and the tea set number 45, designed by Johann Rode, also with an ivory handle. The next picture is a design by Johann Rode that he did in 1920. And Georg Jensen at that time thought that this was such an unusual design that it was too early for the public to accept. He thought it was more modern than the time was willing to accept. So he held it back from production, and it was not produced until 1925. It is still one of the most desirable and beautiful pictures that the Jensen Smithy produced of Johann Rode's designs. The next is, and that number is 432. The next is the Henning Koppel picture, number 992, which has been pictured and in many books on modern design. It was introduced in 1952. It was referred to and still is as the pregnant duck. It's very beautiful. There is a pewter prototype that is quite extraordinary, and the picture is very beautiful and very desirable today. Almost looks like a bird in flight. The group of coasters and salts and peppers are accessories to the table. Some have enamel inside to prevent erosion from salt, and they're wonderful to use as accessories for any small articles of food or to put a wine glass on. The salt and pepper shakers, number 965, were designed by Soren Georg Jensen, a son of Georg Jensen. They're a great shape. They're fun to look at and to use. They're certainly more modern in design, and they're whimsical and they're charming, and you can play with them and kind of move them around so that you can make your own table sculpture while you're at it. The box with the amber stone on it is number 30. It has an underplate and a beautiful finial. It's a wonderful example to end Jensen Holloware on. There are tiny little frog's legs that are on the bottom of this box, and the same kind of little frog legs that Jensen used in the Blossom Teapot. And again, you can see how he was inspired by nature and the animals and the leaves and the buds that he was so impressed with by the landscape that he lived in, that he grew up with in this little town in Radvad. And should you want to know more information or read the book or see some other illustrations which will help you to understand and appreciate Georg Jensen, you could find us on our webpage. It's www.druckerantiques.com. Thank you. Georg Jensen created a style. You can read more about Georg Jensen's background in my book, Georg Jensen, A Tradition of Splendid Silver, published in 1997 by Schiffer Publishing, and you can find us on www.druckerantiques.com.